Plotinus Second Ennead, First Tractate, on the World. Introduction. Why inquire about the world? Plotinus begins his inquiry with a bold metaphysical premise: the world we see, though mutable and material, is not self-subsistent. It is not brute fact, but a manifestation, an expression, a reflection of a higher reality. Thus, to understand the world is not merely to engage in natural philosophy or astronomy, but to pursue a deeper truth. What is the world in relation to soul, intellect, and the One? This tractate is not cosmology, in a modern empirical sense. Rather, it is a theological and ontological account of the universe, aiming to reveal its place in the great chain of being. The cosmos as a living being. Plotinus affirms the ancient Platonic doctrine: the world is a living being, ensouled, intelligent, and ordered. This cosmic organism is not an accidental arrangement of parts, but a unified whole, a macrocosm that mirrors the intelligible realm. It is not the soul that arises from the body of the world, but the body of the world that flows from the soul. The world soul gives life to all, ordering the stars, the elements, the cycles of nature, and the movement of time. The universe is not a collection of independent objects, but a systematically unified body, pervaded and shaped by a divine soul. This world is the expression of the soul's inward contemplation, projected into multiplicity. 2. The soul's creative act: how the world comes to be. The origin of the world is traced through a metaphysical procession. The One, the source of all, overflows in absolute simplicity. From this overflow arises nous, the divine intellect containing the forms, the eternal archetypes. From the contemplation of nous emerges soul, the dynamic, life-giving principle that extends toward multiplicity. The soul, through its downward gaze, generates the cosmos. This is not a temporal act, but an eternal process. The world flows from soul as light flows from the sun. The creation of the world is not a making, but a manifestation. Plotinus calls this a generation by contemplation. Importantly, the soul does not enter into matter in a literal sense. The world soul remains above, in a governing position, while a lower phase of soul, a reflection or power, animates the material world directly. 3. Is the world eternal or generated? Plotinus confronts a classic philosophical problem: did the world have a beginning in time? He answers decisively: the world is eternal. It has no temporal origin because the soul, its cause, acts eternally. Just as light is always radiating from the sun, so too is the cosmos eternally flowing from the soul. If the world had a beginning in time, this would imply a change in its cause, but the higher soul is unchanging. Therefore, the cosmos does not arise from a decision, but from the nature of the soul itself. This view distinguishes Plotinus from the Stoics, who posited cyclical cosmic destruction and rebirth, and from certain religious cosmologies, which speak of a creation in time. For Plotinus, the world is the necessary outflow of eternal principles, a dependent, luminous image. 4. The goodness and order of the world. If the world is born of soul, and soul comes from intellect, which arises from the One, then the world must be good, ordered, and intelligible. But Plotinus also acknowledges the presence of disorder, suffering, and decay. How can a good world contain evil? He answers: the material world is good, but in a lesser way. It is not the good itself, but a distant image. Like a reflection in water, it is dimmer, less perfect, and more unstable. Evil, for Plotinus, is not a substance, but a privation, a result of the distance from the good, not its contradiction. Thus, nature's flaws are not indictments of its maker, but inevitable consequences of descending multiplicity. The further a thing is from the source, the more it falls into limitation, shadow, and imperfection. Yet, despite this, the whole remains sublime even in its lowest parts. The stars and the heavens, divine and living beings. Plotinus devotes part of this tractate to a metaphysical defense of the stars and heavenly bodies as living, divine, and ensouled beings. Unlike the corruptible things of earth, the celestial realm is governed by reason, unerring, and eternally in harmony. The heavenly bodies are not passive objects, but gods, in the ancient sense beings of immense power and purity, far above the turmoil of earth. Their motions are not mechanical but intelligently ordered, guided by the soul. This view is inherited from Plato's Timaeus, but infused with Plotinus' unique metaphysical rigor. The heavens are visible expressions of the intelligible order. The beauty and constancy of their motions bear witness to the divine. 6. Matter and necessity, the limits of the world. Plotinus clarifies that while the world is beautiful and ordered, it is not immune to necessity. The body of the cosmos is shaped by soul, but it is informed matter, and matter, by its nature, is the principle of limitation and indeterminacy. This explains why there is decay, death, and disorder in the cosmos. These are not flaws in the world soul, but consequences of embodiment. Matter resists form, and that resistance generates necessity, the chain of cause and effect that governs all things in time. Yet even this necessity is not evil. It is the condition for the existence of the visible cosmos, and thus part of the larger harmony. The rational structure of the world exists within necessity, but is not reducible to it. 7. The world's purpose, manifestation of the divine. What is the purpose of the world, then? For Plotinus, it is not made for us, nor is it for its own sake. Rather, the world exists as a natural expression of the higher realms, an act of overflowing abundance. The one does not will the world, it emanates it. Intellect contemplates the forms, soul animates them, and the world displays them in time and space. This is the cosmic order. The one equals unity, source, the beyond of being. Nous, intellect, equals the eternal forms, the intelligible cosmos. Soul equals the living bridge between eternity and time. World equals the visible, animated reflection of the intelligible world. The cosmos is thus a visible theology, a mirror of divine order, a living symbol of the good, and an arena for the soul's return. The world as divine image and arena of ascent. In this tractate, Plotinus does not ask what the world is made of, but why the world is, and he answers with breathtaking metaphysical grandeur. The world is not a prison, as some Gnostics would argue, nor is it a self-standing fact. It is a procession, a necessary radiance, a manifested order born of contemplation and sustained by the soul. To live in this world is not a curse, but an invitation. The world reflects the divine and calls the soul to recognize, remember, and rise. In seeing the world aright, we are led upward from beauty to form, from soul to nous, and from nous to the ineffable one, the silent source of all. Essay on Plotinus Second Ennead, Second Tractate, on the Heavens. Introduction. Why examine the heavens? In classical antiquity, the heavens were regarded with awe as the most sublime part of the cosmos. For Plotinus, they are not simply a background to earthly life, nor are they inert matter moved by impersonal forces. They are living, divine, rational beings. The question Plotinus seeks to answer is, what is the nature of the heavens and their motions? Do the celestial bodies act by necessity or by rational principle? Are they subject to fate, or do they express the will of soul and nous? Is the cosmos deterministic, or is it ordered by freedom and intelligence? This tractate offers a powerful refutation of materialism and fatalism, and affirms the Neoplatonic view that the universe is a sacred, living order, in which even the stars are expressions of soul and intellect. Against materialist and fatalist cosmologies. Plotinus opens by confronting two errors. The view that the heavens are purely material vast bodies moved by physical necessity, unintelligent and inert. The belief in astrological fatalism that the stars and planets dictate the fate and character of human beings through deterministic influence. Both, he argues, are mistaken. The heavens are not irrational. The celestial motions are expressions of divine reason. Nor are the stars tyrants over human lives. They are signs, not causes. Their influence is symbolic, not coercive. They are part of the world's order, not the source of human good or evil. Plotinus seeks to restore a sacred cosmology, one in which the heavens are alive, wise, and benevolent. 2. The heavens as a living being. Just as in Tractate I, Plotinus affirms that the cosmos is a living organism, and the heavens are its noblest part. The celestial bodies are ensouled. Their movements are not mechanical, but expressions of life. They are not being dragged along by natural forces, they move according to thought. In fact, Plotinus insists that the celestial bodies are God's living, intelligent beings that contemplate the divine. Their circular motion, perfect and unchanging, is a visible symbol of the eternal activity of Nous. Whereas earthly things are subject to birth and decay, the heavens are incorruptible. They do not fall into disorder because they participate more directly in the eternal forms. 3. The motion of the heavens, not mechanical, but contemplative. A crucial part of this tractate is Plotinus' interpretation of celestial motion. Why do the heavens move? And what kind of motion is this? He rejects any explanation that sees motion as an indication of lack, desire, or physical necessity. Instead, the heavens move in circles because they are contemplating. Their movement is not from desire for something they lack, but from fullness, a motion of joy and life, not of compulsion. This circular motion, eternal and unceasing, is the natural expression of divine life. It is analogous to the activity of Nous, which thinks itself eternally. The stars and spheres, in moving, reflect this contemplative activity. They rejoice in their own being. 4. The stars do not cause evil, a refutation of astrology. One of Plotinus' most direct polemics is against the deterministic aspects of astrology. He does not deny that celestial patterns may correspond to earthly events, but he denies that the stars cause human character or destiny. If the stars are divine and intelligent, how could they cause evil? If they do not know us, how could they intend our fate? If they do know us, would they not wish us good? He concludes that the influence of the stars is not efficient causation, but symbolic correspondence. The heavens reflect, but do not command. They are part of a unified order in which all things are bound together, but they do not override the freedom of the rational soul. This is a critical assertion. Plotinus defends free will against astrological fatalism. The soul is not determined by the stars. Its true activity lies above the heavens, in contemplation of Nous and the good. The harmony between the heavens and the intelligible world. Plotinus views the cosmos as a layered hierarchy. The one equals the source of all. Nous, intellect, equals the realm of eternal forms. Soul equals the dynamic principle of life. Heavens equals the first visible expression of soul's activity. The sublunary world equals changeable, temporal, and often troubled. The heavens are the middle term, still visible, yet participating deeply in the intelligible world. Their order, regularity, and beauty reveal the formative power of soul. Their movements are ritual enactments of divine thought. Even time itself is born from their motion, not as a cause, but as a measure of change. The stars, moving in their perfect courses, provide the framework by which we understand duration. But their being is eternal. 6. The soul's model, live like the heavens. The heavens are not only objects of wonder. They are models for the soul. Plotinus urges the philosopher to imitate the heavens, to revolve inwardly, to contemplate the divine, to move not from lack but from fullness and joy. Just as the stars follow their courses with serenity and order, so too should the rational soul seek to live in accord with reason and harmony. This is a profound ethical teaching hidden in a cosmological tractate. The stars become images of the rightly ordered soul, serene, radiant, unchanging in essence. The heavens as divine mirror and moral guide. In this tractate, Plotinus offers a radiant vision of the cosmos. The heavens are not cold machines or arbitrary forces, they are living gods, ensouled beings who manifest the beauty, order, and intelligence of the higher world. Their motions are not chaotic or deterministic, but contemplative, celebratory, and wise. They do not rule us with iron necessity, but invite us to see the divine in all things, and to shape our lives according to the same eternal principles. Thus, the heavens become both mirror and model, they reflect the invisible order of being, and they guide the soul to its own proper harmony. To understand the stars aright is not to read horoscopes, but to be reminded that all things shine from the One, and that our highest task is to turn, like them, in unceasing contemplation toward the eternal light. Essay on Plotinus Second Ennead, Third Tractate, Are the Stars Causes? Introduction, The Allure and Danger of Astrology. Astrology was immensely popular in the Hellenistic and Roman world. Many believed that the positions and movements of the stars determined a person's character, fortunes, and even their destiny. The heavens were read as scripts, supposedly revealing or even dictating the unfolding of human lives. Plotinus does not reject the significance of the stars. Rather, he aims to distinguish between two views. That the stars cause events in a literal, mechanical, or deterministic way. That the stars signify events participating in a grand, meaningful order that reflects but does not control what happens. His purpose is both metaphysical and ethical, to preserve the soul's freedom, uphold the integrity of the cosmos, and dismantle any view that turns divine beings into tyrants over the human will. The stars are not the authors of evil. Plotinus begins with a decisive ethical objection: if the stars are divine, how could they cause evil? The planets and stars are ensouled beings, noble and godlike. It is absurd to think that such beings would will the birth of tyrants, suffering, or personal misfortune. The idea that the stars cause individual suffering, moral failure, or catastrophe is inconsistent with their divine character. Moreover, if we grant that the stars act with deliberate knowledge, then they must act for the good. If they act without knowledge, then they are irrational, which contradicts their divine status. Therefore, the notion that they cause random or evil outcomes is both metaphysically and theologically false. 2. The stars as part of the great order, participation, not domination. Rather than acting as causal agents, Plotinus argues that the stars are part of the cosmic order, an order structured by the logos, the rational principle of the universe. They do not impose events upon the world, but they participate in a coordinated manifestation of intelligible patterns. This leads to Plotinus' concept of coincidence by correspondence. Events in the heavens and on earth unfold in parallel because both are governed by the same rational structure, but one does not cause the other. The stars may signal what is occurring below, just as a clock hand may show the hour, but it does not cause time. So, too, does Plotinus view the stars as signs, not causes, part of a synchronous system whose true origin lies above both soul and star, in intellect, nous. 3. The problem of necessity and free will. Plotinus now tackles the question of necessity. If everything in the cosmos is interconnected, is anything free? Are events inevitable because of the harmony of the whole? His answer is subtle: there is a kind of necessity, but it is not coercive. Events arise from the nature of things, not from external imposition. The soul acts according to its own principles, the body acts according to physical principles. The harmony between soul and world reflects the unity of the cosmos, but does not destroy agency. The soul, especially the rational soul, remains capable of choice. The stars might mark the conditions of one's incarnation, temperament, disposition, environment, but they do not determine the soul's moral response. Freedom remains where reason and reflection are possible. 4. The role of soul in ordering the world. Plotinus affirms that the world soul, acting from the level of nous, distributes life, order, and fate throughout the cosmos. The stars, like all things, are under its governance. They do not originate causality, but they are vehicles through which the harmonies of soul are expressed. This ordering is not arbitrary. It reflects a higher logic. The soul's descent into the body happens in accordance with patterns in the universe, such that celestial configurations mirror the inner structure of the soul's task in incarnation. But again, signs, not chains. The soul has entered this ordered world in a meaningful way, and the stars reflect its condition. They do not dictate its future. Fate, providence, and the hierarchy of causes. Plotinus delineates a threefold hierarchy of causes. Providence, pronoia, the highest level divine intelligence, nous, which contains all things in unity and eternal truth. Fate, hymarmene, the unfolding of order in time, the pattern succession of events governed by soul. Chance, Tai-chi apparent randomness, which arises from the intersection of multiple lines of causality in the lower world. The stars belong to the realm of fate, but this fate is an expression of providence, not blind necessity. Fate is not an enemy to freedom, it is a symbol of structure. True freedom lies not in escaping order, but in recognizing one's place in it, and rising above it through contemplation. 6. The stars reflect the soul's condition. Plotinus ends with a profound idea. The configuration of the stars at a person's birth reflects the nature of the soul entering incarnation. The stars are not causes but correlates. Just as the structure of a building reflects the idea of the architect, so too does the cosmic configuration reflect the soul's mode of descent. There is a kind of pre-established harmony, not predestination, but pre-signification. This places responsibility back on the soul. The stars may tell us what kind of nature we have, but not what choices we will make. The sage is not bound by the stars, he uses their reflection as a guide, while anchoring himself in the intelligible world. Signs in the sky, freedom in the soul. In this tractate, Plotinus offers a liberating metaphysical vision. The stars are divine, not demonic. They are ensouled, harmonious, contemplative, not causes of evil or instruments of tyranny. Their positions and motions form part of the world's symbolic language, not its system of control. They reveal, they reflect, but they do not command. By affirming this, Plotinus defends both the integrity of the cosmos and the freedom of the soul. We are not victims of celestial machinery, but participants in a divine harmony capable of knowing, choosing, and returning to our source. The stars may adorn the heavens, but the soul's highest aim is beyond them, in the intellect, in the good, in the one where no fate binds, and all is light. Plotinus Second Ennead, 4th Tractate, Matter. Introduction, the enigma of the substratum. Plotinus begins with a philosophical question inherited from Plato and Aristotle: what is the underlying stuff that receives form? If all visible things are composites of form and matter, then what is this matter, highly, that lies beneath appearances? Is it something real, or a kind of illusion? For Plotinus, this is not a physical but a metaphysical question. Matter is not something we see or touch, it is that which allows things to appear, the formless potential that receives all shape yet has none of its own. It is pure receptivity, utter indeterminacy. And this makes it, in Plotinus' system, deeply problematic. Matter is not a substance, but a substratum. First, Plotinus rejects any substantialist view of matter. It is not a kind of thing, not water, air, atoms, or any elemental principle. Nor is it a heap of invisible particles. Rather, matter is the indeterminate principle, the pure capacity to receive form. It is always what something else becomes, but never itself anything. It has no qualities, no limits, no intelligibility. As such, it is the opposite of form, the shadow side of being. Plotinus is following Plato here, especially Timaeus and Sophist, but he intensifies the paradox: the closer you get to understanding matter, the less there is to understand. It is not simply less being, it is the ontological abyss, non-being that appears as a kind of being. 2. Matter and perception, the false image of reality. Plotinus explains that we never perceive matter itself, but only forms in matter. What we see, a tree, a face, a flame, is not matter, but the imposition of form upon matter. Matter is invisible. It is never given directly, only as that which underlies the visible. This raises a crucial point: matter, as the basis of the sensible world, is the region of change, becoming, and illusion. Because it has no stability of its own, it distorts form. It is not evil as a force, but as a privation, it lacks being, light, and intelligibility. Thus, to live entirely in the world of sense is to live in a shadow world, where the soul is turned away from the intelligible and becomes lost in what merely appears, not what truly is. 3. The two kinds of matter, intelligible and sensible. Plotinus makes a distinction between two kinds of matter. Intelligible matter, the substrate of multiplicity within the realm of nous. This matter is not evil, it is the condition of plurality among forms. For example, for multiple triangles or souls to exist in nous, there must be some differentiating principle. This is a pure, ordered, intellectual matrix, without shadow or distortion. Sensible matter, the formless substrate of the physical world. This is the lowest kind of matter, lying at the outermost limit of reality. It is this matter that is evil, not morally, but ontologically. It is absolute indeterminacy, the last echo of the procession from the One. Sensible matter is the furthest thing from the good. It is not created by the One, but rather results from the soul's downward gaze, from its dimmest and most diffuse act of generation. 4. Matter as evil, the problem of non-being. One of the most controversial and important theses in this tractate is that matter is evil. Plotinus is not being dualistic in the Gnostic or Manichaean sense. He is not positing two rival substances, one good and one evil. But he is saying that the essence of evil is non-being, and since matter is closest to non-being, it is closest to evil. Matter is evil not because it actively opposes the good, but because it lacks all form, measure, and intelligibility. It is darkness, not because it does anything, but because it is the absence of light. It is not sin, but the ontological condition that makes sin possible, confusion, division, forgetfulness. To desire matter. To cling to the purely sensible, is to desire nothing. And this is the soul's fall, when it turns from the intelligible toward the formless, it becomes disordered, alienated, and filled with phantoms. Matter cannot be perceived or known, it is below all reason. Plotinus insists that we cannot know matter directly, because it has no essence. Knowledge requires form, something stable, intelligible, bounded. But matter is precisely what has no boundaries. It escapes all categories. Matter is not large or small, not hot or cold, not good or bad in itself. It is all and none of these, potentially. It is what allows opposites to manifest, but has no quality of its own. This is why Plotinus calls it a phantom, a dream, a ghost of being. It is not falsehood per se, but the condition for falsehood, because in it, forms become confused, overlapping, and indistinct. 6. Why does matter exist? If matter is so deficient, why does it exist at all? Plotinus offers several answers, grounded in his doctrine of procession, prohodos. Matter exists as the lowest limit of the soul's productive power. It is the last ripple in the emanation from the One. It exists necessarily, not by the One's choice, but by the logic of descent. It is not evil in itself, but evil by distance from the good. In this way, Plotinus avoids dualism. Matter is not a rival power, it is a shadow cast by being. It has no force of its own, only a kind of ontological inertia. It drags the soul down only if the soul turns its gaze downward. Conclusion: matter as limit, evil, and the soul's challenge. In this remarkable tractate, Plotinus reveals matter to be not a neutral component of reality, but a boundary, the outermost fringe of existence, where being fades into non-being. It is not a substance, but a privation. Not a force, but a vacuum. And this makes it the condition of both illusion and fall. When the soul forgets its origin and turns to the world of shadows, it enters the region of error, passion, and death. Yet matter also serves a purpose, it provides a field for embodiment, for experience, and ultimately for ascent. By recognizing the unreality of what it clings to, the soul can be moved to turn back, to purify itself, and to seek the realm of light, order, and true being. In the Plotinian vision, to understand matter is to understand the lowest possibility of existence, and to be called inward and upward, toward the formless source of all form, the One, in whom there is no shadow, and no turning. Plotinus Second Ennead, 5th Tractate, on Potentiality and Actuality. Introduction: Two Modes of Being. Plotinus inherits from Aristotle the terms potentiality and actuality, but he does not use them to describe change in the natural world, as Aristotle did in physics or biology. Instead, Plotinus explores their ontological significance, What do these concepts reveal about the hierarchy of reality, about the soul, and about the unfolding of being itself? His key metaphysical insight is this: potentiality is always subordinate to actuality. Potential is incomplete, indeterminate, unrealized, it exists only in reference to what it could become. Actuality, on the other hand, is full presence, the realization of form and purpose. Thus, actuality is more real than potentiality, and all beings strive toward actualization, toward their own perfection. The hierarchy of being, actuality comes first. One of the tractate's most important claims is inversion of Aristotelian priority. While Aristotle often starts with potential and moves toward actualization, as in growth or motion, Plotinus insists that actuality precedes potentiality, both in value and in ontological origin. He applies this structure to the Neoplatonic cosmos. The one, pure actuality, beyond being and thought. Nous, intellect, full realization of all forms, pure, eternal activity. Soul, a mixture, actual in its contemplation of nous, but capable of turning downward toward the potential. Nature and matter, increasingly potential, the realm of change, multiplicity, and unrealized possibility. Thus, being descends from actuality to potentiality. The further a thing is from the source, the more indeterminate and unrealized it becomes. Matter, the lowest principle, is pure potential, devoid of form, wholly receptive. In this way, Plotinus reinterprets all of existence as an unfolding from actual to potential, and a movement of return from potential to actual. 2. Potentiality is not a substance, but a relation. Plotinus carefully defines potentiality as something that exists only in relation to an end. It is not self-sufficient. To say something is, potentially, a statue or, potentially, wise is to say that it can become so, but it is not yet what it is meant to be. Potentiality, then, is not a thing, it is a deficiency, a state of not yet. It implies the lack of a form that could be present. Therefore, Plotinus emphasizes, potentiality depends on actuality, not the other way around. The potential is always defined by its telos, its goal. The sculptor sees the form in the marble, the seed bears within it the actualized tree. Even the soul in its lowest condition has within it the potential to return to nous, and that potential is intelligible only because nous exists as actuality first. 3. The activity of intellect, pure actuality without motion. In Plotinus' hierarchy, nous, the divine intellect, is pure actuality. It contains all forms, not as separate things, but as a unified, living thought. It does not think in motion or process. It is thought, perfectly realized, self-sufficient. Plotinus stresses that nous does not move from potentiality to actuality. It is always already at its goal. Its activity is not striving or becoming, but being. It is the full unfolding of what it is, like a circle complete in itself. This is why nous is the model for the soul. The soul becomes truly itself when it returns to this actualization, when it ceases to fluctuate and becomes stably what it is, a contemplative being. 4. The soul as the realm of transition. The soul exists in a middle state. It contains actualized intellective powers, contemplation, reason, memory, but also has a turning power toward the lower realm. It can project into time, into imagination, into the world of becoming. This makes it the realm of potentiality mixed with actuality. In this sense, the soul's journey is a movement from indeterminacy to determination, from forgetfulness to remembrance, from dispersion to unity. The actualization of the soul is its recollection of its origin, its movement upward toward nous. Every moment of self-realization, every act of true thought, is an act of becoming what one is, not in the Aristotelian sense of acquiring accidental form, but in the Neoplatonic sense of ascending to essential actuality. Matter and absolute potentiality. Plotinus now revisits the concept of matter, the purest potentiality. Matter has no actuality of its own. It is utterly receptive, lacking form, limit, or identity. It is the other of being, the negation of the actual. Because matter is devoid of actuality, it is also the seat of evil. Not moral evil per se, but ontological lack. It is the furthest thing from the good, and its presence in the world is a limit, a shadow, a necessary terminus of the soul's productive power. This is why matter must be overcome. Not by annihilating it, but by not identifying with it. The soul's task is to turn away from what is merely potential, what is always becoming, and seek the fully realized, fully present, fully actual. 6. Actualization as perfection and return. Plotinus presents actualization as the fulfillment of essence. A thing becomes perfect not by acquiring something foreign, but by realizing what it already is in its highest form. For human beings, this means turning inward and upward, not toward sense or body or passion, but toward the logos, the rational, form-bearing principle within the soul. In actualization, the soul becomes like nous, not changing, but abiding in the truth. It no longer seeks potential forms, but becomes a stable unity, capable of vision rather than opinion, being rather than becoming. This ascent is not linear, but cyclical and vertical, a return from dispersion to unity, from image to source, from time to eternity. Conclusion. The soul between shadow and light. Plotinus' doctrine of potentiality and actuality is not abstract scholasticism. It is a profound map of the soul's situation. Below lies matter, the abyss of pure potentiality, the distortion of all form. Above lies nous, pure actuality, the fullness of being and knowledge. In between is the soul, a dynamic being, capable of descending into indeterminacy or ascending into realized selfhood. Actuality is not just ontological, it is ethical, existential, and spiritual. To be actual is to be what one is in the divine mind. To be merely potential is to be a shadow of oneself. In this way, Plotinus transforms Aristotle's physics into a theology of return. All things strive toward their perfection, because all things come from a fullness that calls them back, a divine actuality that is our source, our measure, and our true life. Plotinus Second Ennead, 6th Tractate, on Quality or Substance. Introduction. What is a quality? Plotinus begins with a central metaphysical distinction: what is quality, poietos, and how is it different from substance, ousia? Substance is what a thing is in its essence, that which exists in itself. Quality, by contrast, is what a thing has, an attribute, a modification, an accident. For example, a body is a substance, its color, temperature, or shape are qualities. A soul is a substance, its virtue or knowledge is a quality. But these examples raise the question: are qualities real in themselves? Are they dependent on substances? Are they eternal, or mutable? Plotinus answers these questions by moving through three levels of reality: the sensible, the psychic, and the intelligible. Sensible qualities: change, multiplicity, and dependence. In the material world, qualities appear as accidents, mutable properties that inhere in bodies. Color, warmth, texture, and sound are examples. These qualities do not exist apart from substances. They are not self-sufficient realities, but expressions of form in matter. Yet even at this level, Plotinus insists that qualities are not merely empirical. They reflect formal principles that pre-exist in soul and intellect. Their instability arises from their union with matter, which is the principle of indeterminacy. Thus, sensible qualities are shadows, faint expressions of a higher, eternal order. Their multiplicity and change are the result of being attached to becoming. In themselves, they are not the ultimate ground of reality. 2. Psychic qualities, virtue and the inner formation. Plotinus next turns to the soul. The soul also possesses qualities, but they are of a different kind: courage, wisdom, justice, intelligence. These are not material attributes, but states of being, dispositions of the soul's inner structure. Unlike bodily qualities, these psychic qualities are closer to substance. In fact, Plotinus suggests that in some cases, they are not separate from the soul at all, they are what the soul becomes when it lives according to its own nature. That is, virtue is not added to the soul, it is the actualization of the soul's essence. For example, when the soul is just, it is not colored by justice, it is justice, in the sense that its parts are rightly ordered and aligned with the good. This leads Plotinus to blur the distinction between quality and substance in the psychic realm. Here, qualities begin to take on ontological dignity, they are no longer just attributes, but modes of being. 3. Intelligible qualities, forms as substantial qualities. In the highest realm, nous, the divine intellect, Plotinus finds a radical transformation of the notion of quality. In nous, qualities are not accidents. They are identical with the forms, and thus with substance itself. In other words, what a thing is and what it is like are the same. Beauty, justice, wisdom, these are not attributes of things in nous, they are the very being of those things. Thus, Plotinus dissolves the Aristotelian distinction between substance and quality at the highest level. In nous, all is pure act, pure form, pure intelligibility. There is no distinction between a thing and its essence, because there is no potentiality, no matter, and no division. Qualities, in this realm, are eternal characters, existing not as modifications of substance but as substance itself. 4. The descent of quality, from unity to multiplicity. How, then, do we get from the unity of nous to the diversity of qualities in the world? Plotinus traces this through his doctrine of emanation. As soul proceeds from nous and nature from soul, the pure forms are progressively fragmented and reflected in more limited ways. In soul, forms are still intelligible, though bound to a duality of knowing and being. In nature and the sensible world, they are only partially expressed, embedded in matter, and subject to opposition and decay. Qualities, then, are not added to things. They are gradations of form, shaped by the medium through which they pass. In intellect, quality is identical with substance. In soul, quality is a mode of being, often coextensive with the substance. In body, quality is accidental, unstable, and dependent. This metaphysical scale clarifies why sensible qualities can deceive. They are incomplete expressions of the real, and their instability reflects their distance from the source. The ethical dimension, the soul's quality as selfhood. Plotinus closes the tractate by returning to the ethical implications of his doctrine. If qualities in the soul, like virtue, intelligence, and beauty, are not accidents but acts of being, then the cultivation of virtue is not the acquisition of something new, but the realization of the soul's own nature. To become wise, brave, or just is not to add ornaments to the self, but to become fully oneself. The soul that embodies these qualities is being what it is in nous. In this way, psychic quality is both metaphysical and moral, it is the very act of returning to one's divine origin. This reinforces the Neoplatonic view of philosophy as transformation, not merely knowledge. To know the good is to become good. To contemplate beauty is to become beautiful. There is no gap between knowing, being, and valuing, they are one at the summit of existence. Conclusion, quality as the echo of form, the shape of soul. In this tractate, Plotinus reframes the concept of quality from its role as a secondary property in Aristotelian metaphysics to a central axis in the soul's ascent. In the sensible world, qualities are fleeting reflections, dependent on form and matter. In the soul, qualities like virtue are modes of self-actualization, deeply entwined with the essence of the self. In the intelligible realm, qualities are identical with being itself, eternal forms in the divine mind. Quality, then, becomes a measure of nearness to the One. The higher the quality, the more unified, self-sufficient, and real it is. The lowest qualities, those bound to body and flux, are least real, least luminous. The highest are indistinguishable from truth and life. To cultivate higher qualities is to ascend. To cling to lower ones is to fall. Thus, Plotinus' exploration of quality is a mirror of his entire philosophy, a ladder of return, from accident to essence, from appearance to reality, from multiplicity to unity. Plotinus Second Ennead, 7th Tractate, on Complete Transfusion. Introduction, the Paradox of Participation. Plotinus begins by confronting a metaphysical puzzle: how can a single principle, like soul, intellect, or even form, be fully present in many things without being broken into parts? When fire warms many objects, we don't think fire is fragmented. But how is this possible with immaterial principles? This is not just a question about fire or heat, it is a question about how the divine permeates the cosmos. How can one undivided soul give life to many bodies? How can nous, the single source of intelligibility, be present in all thinking minds? How can the one, utterly transcendent, be in all things and beyond them? Plotinus answers with his doctrine of complete presence without division, a metaphysics of transcendent immanence, which affirms that unity is not compromised by multiplicity when it operates on a higher level. The analogy of the sun and its light. One of Plotinus' favorite analogies appears again here: the sun. The sun illuminates all things by its light, yet it remains unchanged and undiminished in itself. Its presence is not spatially divided. It gives all to all, without loss. In the same way, soul radiates life into the world. Intellect imparts form to many minds. The one gives being to all, yet none of these causes are diminished by their giving. They remain whole in themselves while being completely present in each recipient. This is not a physical distribution, like pouring water into cups, but an ontological presence. The cause is not spread thin, it is wholly wherever it is received, and fully beyond at the same time. 2. Division without separation, the logic of participation. Plotinus wants to preserve both sides of the metaphysical paradox. The higher principles are indivisible, simple, and unified. And yet, they are entirely communicable. The soul gives life to every part of the body. The intellect gives thought to every soul, the one gives being to all. How is this possible? Plotinus' answer is that the participation of lower beings in higher principles is not a movement through space, but a dependence in being. When something receives soul, it does not take a piece of soul, but is animated by soul's presence. The whole soul is in the whole body, and the whole soul is also in each part. This leads to the concept of undivided presence in divided recipients. The cause is simple and universal, the recipient is particular and finite. But the presence of the cause is complete in each instance, not in quantity, but in power and essence. 3. The immaterial nature of the higher principles. Plotinus emphasizes that this kind of transfusion is possible only because the higher realities are immaterial. If soul or intellect were bodies, they would be subject to division in space. But because they are not extended, they can be wholly present wherever they act. This is why nous can be present in every rational mind without fragmentation. It is why soul can animate the entire cosmos without being spread across space. And it is why the one, though beyond being, can give all being, not by moving or changing, but by its eternal overflowing. This immaterial nature allows Plotinus to construct a vision of a world in which presence is not limited by distance or location. The divine is everywhere, but not as an object, rather, as the condition of all existence. 4. The One as the supreme example of complete transfusion. The highest and most mysterious case of complete transfusion is the One itself, the absolute source, beyond being, intellect, and soul. The One is present to all things because all things exist by its presence. Yet it remains utterly transcendent, untouched, undiminished, undivided. Its mode of presence is unlike any other. It is not in things as a part or feature, but as the ground of their being. Plotinus describes this in paradoxical terms. The One is nowhere, yet everywhere. It is all, yet none of the things that exist. It is wholly in each, and yet above all. This is not mystical rhetoric but precise metaphysics. The One is not a being among beings, it is the power by which beings are. Its complete transfusion is the ultimate case of cause without diminution. The implications for the soul and ascent. This doctrine has deep implications for the soul. If soul is wholly present in each living being, then the individual soul is never truly separate from the divine. It participates in a whole that is always present. Even more, the soul can turn inward and upward, not to find a part of the divine, but to find the whole, to remember the total presence of intellect, and even of the one, within itself. This is the foundation of Plotinus ethics and mysticism. The divine is not far away. It is wholly within, but must be recognized by purification, contemplation, and ascent. The journey is not spatial but existential, a reorientation toward what is already entirely present. Conclusion: the whole in every part. On Complete Transfusion, is one of Plotinus' most profound meditations on the structure of reality. It affirms that the divine is not diminished by its gifts. The higher principles are present in full to all things. There is no contradiction between unity and multiplicity, if we understand that the higher operates beyond space, beyond division. This is not only a metaphysical doctrine. It is a spiritual invitation. To recognize the whole in oneself, to realize that soul, nous, and even the one are completely present, not partially, not metaphorically, but truly and essentially, is to awaken to the soul's deepest reality. In Plotinus' world, there is no exile from the divine, only ignorance of its presence. The task of philosophy, contemplation, and virtue is not to bring the divine near, but to awaken to what is already here, whole, and waiting. Plotinus Second Ennead, 8th Tractate, Why Distant Objects Appear Small. Introduction, Vision as a Philosophical Problem. Plotinus poses a deceptively simple question: why do distant objects appear small? Why, for example, does a mountain seem tiny on the horizon, while it looms large when we approach it? He acknowledges that other thinkers, especially those of the Stoic and Aristotelian traditions, have tried to answer this in physical terms, rays, angles, and proportions. Plotinus does not reject these accounts, but he insists that they are insufficient. There is something more fundamental at stake: how the soul perceives, through the medium of the body, and how it interprets what it receives. This leads him to a broader investigation into the metaphysics of vision, the role of the soul, and the status of the sensible world. The visual apparatus and its limitations. Plotinus begins by acknowledging the physiological side of vision. The eye is the organ of sight, and vision involves the interaction of light, object, and observer. When an object is far away, its image strikes a smaller portion of the visual field, hence, the impression is smaller. But this, he argues, is only part of the story. The real issue lies not in the mechanics of optics, but in how the soul interprets the data. If perception were purely passive, a mechanical reception of external images, then no interpretation would be possible. But perception always involves judgment. The soul processes, interprets, and represents what it sees. And this interpretive act introduces distortion, error, or incompleteness, especially when dealing with things at a distance. 2. The soul's role in vision, not passive, but active. Plotinus emphasizes that the soul is not a passive receiver of sense data. It is the true seat of perception, and the body is merely its instrument. The eye does not see, the soul sees through the eye. Vision is thus a two-level phenomenon. The eye receives a sensible impression, the shape, color, and size of an object. The soul interprets this impression, comparing it with memory, proportion, and context. When an object is far away, the impression is smaller and less detailed. But the soul still knows, from experience and reasoning, that the object is larger than it appears. This shows that perception includes intellective judgment. Thus, distance affects the bodily instrument, but not the soul's awareness of reality. In this way, Plotinus separates sensible appearance from intelligible truth. 3. Imagination and interpretation. The soul reconstructs the real. Plotinus goes further: the soul does not merely interpret sensory impressions, it actively constructs an image, phantasma, using imagination, fantasia. When we look at a distant man or horse, the eye sees a small shape, but the soul fills in the rest. It recognizes patterns, applies memory, and forms a coherent mental representation. This act of mental reconstruction reveals that what we see is not what the eye shows, but what the soul understands. The form of the object, its identity and essence, are not perceived by the senses directly, they are apprehended by the soul, often despite the sensory data. Here, Plotinus subtly hints at his deeper Platonism: the visible world is a veil, and truth lies in the intelligible realm. Even sensory perception is only possible because the soul already knows forms, and projects them onto the flux of appearances. 4. Why the appearance shrinks, a philosophical account. Plotinus now addresses the original question. Distant objects appear small not because their actual size diminishes, but because the impression they make on the visual organ is reduced, and the soul's interpretation is distorted by this diminished data. However, the soul, through memory and reasoning, can correct the impression. We know the mountain is massive, even when it looks tiny. This demonstrates a key Plotinian principle: the soul is not bound to appearances. It can reach beyond sensation and grasp what is real, using its own powers. Sensory distortion does not mean the soul is deceived, unless it identifies itself entirely with the body, which is the error of the unphilosophical. Implications for knowledge, appearance versus truth. Plotinus uses this insight as a platform for deeper metaphysical teaching. What we see with the eyes is not the thing itself, but a reduced appearance, mediated by matter, distance, and sense organs. The philosopher must learn to distinguish appearance from essence, image from reality. The world of the senses is full of partial presentations. Things appear smaller, less beautiful, less perfect than they are in truth. Only the soul that turns inward, using reason and intellect, can perceive the true measure of things. Their form, nature, and origin in the intelligible world. This aligns with Plotinus' whole project, to lead the soul from trust in sensation to faith in intellect, and ultimately to union with the One, where no distortion or diminution can occur. Conclusion: from visual perception to intellectual vision. In this subtle and illuminating tractate, Plotinus shows that even a question about visual size leads to profound metaphysical truths. Distant things appear small because the sensible image is limited. But the soul is not limited to the senses. It interprets, reconstructs, and knows beyond appearance. True perception requires intellect, memory, and inward attention. Thus, this tractate is not merely about optics, it is about how the soul sees, and how it can be deceived or enlightened depending on where it locates the source of truth. The lesson is clear: trust not the eye, but the mind. Truth lies not in what is seen, but in what is known through the soul's alignment with the forms, and through its ascent to the real measure of all things, the divine intellect and, ultimately, the One. Plotinus Second Ennead, 9th Tractate, against those that affirm the creator of the cosmos and the cosmos itself to be evil. Introduction: Philosophy versus pseudognosis. Plotinus begins with outrage. He does not merely disagree with the Gnostics, he accuses them of arrogance, ignorance, and impiety. They dare to criticize the cosmos without understanding it. They reject the world soul, the demiurge, and even the stars, treating them as corrupt or hostile. Yet Plotinus does not reject spiritual ascent. His own system is about the soul's return to the One. What he rejects is the dualistic contempt for the world, the belief that matter is evil, that the Creator is malicious, and that the soul is an alien prisoner in a hostile universe. Instead, Plotinus asserts, the world is good, because it comes from the good. To despise it is to fail to see the divine order shining through its parts. The world as divine manifestation. Plotinus defends the cosmos as a living being, shaped by soul, which in turn proceeds from nous, and ultimately from the One. This triadic procession is not a fall, but a natural, necessary outflow of fullness. Each level of reality reflects the One above it. The One is pure unity, beyond all things. Nous is the realm of perfect forms. Soul brings life, order, and motion to the world. The world, then, is not a mistake, it is the visible manifestation of the intelligible. Its beauty, structure, and harmony reveal its divine origin. Even the body is not evil, it is the instrument of the soul, shaped by the soul's ordering power. To hate the body or the cosmos is to misunderstand their place in the whole. 2. Against the Gnostic critique of the demiurge. The Gnostics taught that the demiurge, the creator god, was either ignorant, vain, or evil. Plotinus vehemently denies this. The soul that orders the world is not wicked, it is a divine being, acting according to the vision of Nous. Creation is not an arbitrary or flawed act, it is the overflow of contemplation. Just as a musician overflows with melody, or a lover with vision, so the soul, seeing the forms, generates the cosmos as an expression of what it sees. The Gnostics insult the soul when they call it blind or wicked. But how could something evil contemplate Nous? How could it produce life, harmony, and motion if it were alien to the good? The soul acts in love, not ignorance. The cosmos is not a prison, it is a temple, an image, a mirror of the intelligible world. 3. The stars and the celestial realm, not demonic, but divine. The Gnostics regarded the stars and planets as archontic powers, malevolent forces that bind the soul to fate. Plotinus sees this as superstition, not philosophy. He reaffirms his earlier view, from Tractates 2 and 3: the heavens are alive, rational, and beautiful. Their motion is the expression of divine thought, not tyranny. Their influence is harmonious, not deterministic. To call the stars evil is to insult the visible image of the intelligible order. Plotinus urges his reader to behold the heavens with reverence, their perfection reveals the lawfulness of the all, and their movement is a hymn to the source from which they flow. 4. On the body and the senses, the soul's education, not its prison. The Gnostic hatred of the body, as a tomb or prison of the soul, is also rejected. Plotinus does not deny that the body can weigh the soul down, but this is a danger, not a damnation. The body is the soul's expression, its external act. The senses, far from deceiving us necessarily, can lead us to recognize order, beauty, and law in nature. The visible world is a stepping stone to the intelligible, not an obstacle. Evil comes not from embodiment, but from identification with the body, from the soul forgetting its origin and mistaking appearance for reality. The task of philosophy is not to hate the world, but to understand it and thus transcend it. V. Plotinus' ethical critique of the Gnostics. Plotinus not only refutes the metaphysics of the Gnostics, he attacks their ethics. He accuses them of arrogance. They claim superiority over the cosmos without understanding it. Presumption, they say they are saved by nature, not by effort. Neglect, they abandon virtue, reason, and discipline in favor of secret names and mystical formulas. True ascent, Plotinus insists, comes through purification, virtue, and philosophical understanding. One does not rise to the divine by despising the world, but by recognizing its participation in the divine, and by imitating that divine order in one's own soul. 6. Evil and matter, clarifying the nature of deficiency. Plotinus acknowledges that evil exists, but he situates it in matter, as privation, not as an active power. The world is not evil, but deficiency exists in the lowest levels of being. Still, even matter is not a rival to the good. It is the farthest echo of the procession from the one. The evils that exist, decay, suffering, ignorance, are consequences of distance, not of malice. The soul's task is not to blame creation, but to rise through it, to learn from its impermanence, to detach from its illusions, and to ascend toward its source. Conclusion: the world is not a prison, but a path. Plotinus ends with a profound affirmation of cosmic goodness. The world is not evil. It is not the product of a fallen god, nor a trap for the soul. It is an ordered reflection of a higher realm, shaped by a soul that contemplates eternal truth. To hate the cosmos is to be blind to its beauty, to reject its music, to turn from its invitation. The visible world is a symbol of the intelligible. The soul should not scorn it, but use it as a ladder of ascent. Plotinus' message is clear: the soul rises not by rebellion, but by recognition. Not by cursing the world, but by seeing through it. To the form, to the intellect, and ultimately to the one, the good that gives birth to all things.